I hope you enjoyed listening to the story of a rainbow fish. Today we're going to do a rainbow fish for our project. You'll need a piece of paper, a pencil, a Sharpie if you have one, a glue stick, some different colored pieces of paper. I looked for all the rainbow papers I could find. So scrapbook paper, tissue paper, paper from books, magazines, anything you want that you can cut up and use for collage is good. You might want to get something shiny like aluminum foil or glitter if you have it. And I'm going to use watercolors, but you could also use markers if you don't have watercolors or anything you can use to color with. We're going to start by drawing the rainbow fish. So you'll need to start with your pencil and follow along with me step by step. The first thing we're going to do to make our rainbow fish is a nice big oval. This will be the fish's body. Leave yourself a little bit of room at the top, the bottom, the back and the sides for some fins. I'm not worried about making that a perfect oval. It's a fish, and when fish swim in the water, their bodies kind of move and change, so it's okay not to be perfect or have a perfect oval here. And then I'm going to put some fins on my rainbow fish, top and bottom. Now the big fin would be the tail. So next I'm going to do the tail. The tail can be, you can make this a little easier if you start with two lines coming out and then connecting that together with the wavy line. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is make the face on our rainbow fish. I'm going to kind of divide this up a little bit so I have a place for the scales and a place for the face. And then you can give your rainbow fish an eye. Any kind of eye that you think looks good. Everyone kind of has their own style of drawing eyes. And let's do the mouth. So like a little smile. Now if you want to put some lips on your fish, you can do this pretty easily just kind of by drawing the shape of a heart. And I'm going to erase that little line right there. Okay, everybody kind of has their own style of making mouths, so whatever kind of mouth you want to make is fine. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to be using watercolor paints, is I want to outline my lines with my Sharpie. You can see that I also added a few lines to make some patterns on my fish's fins and scale and tail. So the next thing we're going to do is use collage techniques, which means cutting, tearing, and gluing paper to create the rainbow fish's scales. So I'm gonna look for some different colors of paper. I was lucky that I was able to find every color of the rainbow. And what I'm just gonna do is tear the paper. Okay, if you have scissors and you wanna cut it, that's fine too. I kind of like the way paper looks when you tear it. And I think that it's sort of fun to tear paper. It's kind of relaxing. So I'm going to tear a little pile of paper, just enough to fit here inside of this section of my oval where the scales would be on a fish. Now, if you do not have paper and glue, you could do this project by drawing and painting on the fish scales. Or another suggestion, if you do want to try the cutting and gluing, would be to make some colored paper. I actually made this colored paper just by painting it with watercolors. So that is one suggestion. If you have watercolor paints and some white paper, you can always make your own colored paper. And I think I have just about enough paper for my rainbow fish. Looks like about enough. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to remove the paper, and I'm going to kind of work one row at a time to add my fish's scales. Okay, if you have another idea for how you'd like to do this, that's fine too. It's always okay to take some creativity and do it your own way. So I like to work in little small sections. So I'm gonna do this kind of quickly just by laying down some glue. And I'm gonna line my scales up kind of in a row. I was lucky to find this red paper that had some glitter on it, and I thought, well, that will be perfect for my rainbow fish. And I'm gonna kind of try to make my rainbow fish actually look like a rainbow. I'm gonna have the scales go in rainbow order. Make sure you rub your paper. It always kind of helps it stay without falling off. And then I'm just gonna work my way down and try to do each row a different color, adding my glue, then my scales, and giving them a rub so that they stick. Now that I have my rainbow fish's scales on, I'm gonna think about adding a little bit of something shiny, because we know the rainbow fish had those beautiful shiny scales. So I have some aluminum foil to give my rainbow fish some shiny scales. If you have glitter or glitter glue, you could add some of that. And we know in the story that the rainbow fish gave away his shiny scales, but I'm just gonna add a few scales because I just kind of think that these nice shiny accents look really cute. And then use my glue stick again. This time I think I'm actually gonna put the glue on the foil so that it sticks. And decide where you want those shiny, beautiful scales to go. And I'm also going to add a little bit of seaweed, something to kind of show that this rainbow fish is swimming in the ocean. So I was able to find some paper that I painted a long time ago, but it kind of looks perfect for seaweed. This was paper that I painted with, or I think it may have been dyed, I can't remember, but I thought it was like the perfect color. So to make my seaweed, I love tearing paper. I'm just gonna tear some long skinny pieces. And I'm gonna go ahead and glue those on to make my seaweed. So this is kind of a longer project. It might take you some time to find all your materials or some time to tear and glue your paper. We want you to take your time with it, and if it takes you longer than one day, that is okay. All right, now that I've got my seaweed on, my rainbow fish has his shiny scales, and I'm kind of done with my tearing and gluing. I'm gonna think about finishing up this rainbow fish. So if you have watercolor paints, these might be a nice thing to use to finish painting your fish. If you don't, you could use Crayola markers. Those will also work. But I think since I have watercolors, I'm gonna go ahead and use those, and I'm gonna finish putting the final touches on my fish with the watercolors. So to finish up the rainbow fish project, I'm going to show you a little trick you can do if you have watercolors and some salt. And this is the big chunky salt that I found in my cabinet, so I'm going to use that. And we've done this before in art class, so some of you might recognize this technique. This is the watercolor with salt technique. So to do that, I'm going to paint with my watercolors. And I'm gonna work in one small section at a time, and I wanna get that salt on my watercolor when it's nice and wet like that. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little salt on there. And then once this is dry, you're gonna tap the salt off into the trash can. But the salt will add a nice crystal look. Kind of makes the water look like it has bubbles in it. So again, I'm working in one small section at a time and sprinkling that salt right onto that really wet spot on my paper. And I'm just gonna keep working on that until I have all of my background painted, like the ocean. I am using blue, but feel free to use any colors that you want for your ocean. Here's my completed rainbow fish. I'm gonna let the watercolors dry really thoroughly, and then I'm gonna dump off the salt to see what those salt crystals did to my watercolors. If you don't have the chunky salt, you can just use any salt that you have at your house. Any salt will work. I hope you enjoyed making your rainbow fish. Don't forget to share it with me on Artsonia.